Welcome everyone to today's class of Seminar Multiculturalism. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Kevin Geiger. He is not only one of the founders and the head of production and distribution of Lateral, which is a company that operates in the animation business, but he's also, well, an award-winning artist. He's a TED talker. And actually, he was a professor at some point in his life in the National Taipei University of Arts. And, well, he has a lot of nice and very unique life and work experiences to share with us today. Please welcome Mr. Kevin Geiger.
Okay, so I'm not going to use that, but I'm trusting that the camera is picking everything up. Okay, great. So I like to use I'm not Italian, but I use my hands a lot. So thank you, Marco. I'm actually impressed that you memorized those key points. That was pretty good. As Marco mentioned, my name is Kevin Geiger. So I will speak English. I apologize. I have a lot of pictures and eye candy, so it should be okay. I'm also not a management student or what you would call a manager. I come from an art background, so that may seem like a complete opposite point of entry to what you guys are here to study, and I assume what you are going to do going forward in your life, which is management. However, I want to make the observation that life is management. We are managing things throughout our lives, personally, professionally, in ways that we don't even anticipate will be relevant when we're in school. I want to say this, most of what you're here learning right now, you either will not use or you will use in ways that you can't imagine. So this is something that I took as a lesson from Steve Jobs, who, when Steve Jobs was in college, which he didn't graduate from, Steve Jobs did not graduate, right? College dropout. But he took a class in calligraphy, traditional calligraphy, just because he wanted to do it. This led to the creation of fonts. And fonts on computers led to desktop publishing, which revolutionized the publishing world, basically turned it on its head. So an individual following their interest, in Steve Jobs' case, calligraphy, led to a transformation in an industry, right? So the point being, what you learn, what you do, what you study, even things that you think, probably the least important thing you're doing here, the thing you think about the least, will be the most important, most impactful thing in your life. And that is why I think we have 3 or 4 titles for this presentation, but I'm going to be talking about lateral thinking, about how you can take something that you are learning, take something that you've been trained to do, take something you're interested in, and apply it not in the most direct way, but in ways that might seem quite indirect, but are actually the most impactful. So, because Marco warned me, he said, students kind of filter in slowly, like these guys, and then we have our roll call in the middle, and then people will leave or whatever. He said, so try to plan accordingly. I was like, it's okay, I was a teacher, I understand. And also, I don't care. So, just to let you know, the basic structure of this talk, I'm going to talk about the least important thing first, which is myself. And then in the second half, I'm going to talk about the most important thing, which is you guys and your future. So, all right, here we go. Oops. Who am I? First of all, go ahead and scan this and then you can leave. This is my website. This has everything you'd ever want to know about me, connections to all my social media, my companies, my past, my present, possibly my future. It's all there. So you can mine down, dig down through this. But I put that right up front, why not? Instead of saving it until the end. You'll also see it at the end, for the people who aren't here right now. But this is me. I started out early on. When I was 5 years old, I was interested in 2 things, I thought. One was I wanted to be a scientist. The other is I wanted to be an artist. What I learned is that I enjoyed drawing in the laboratory more than actually the thought of being in the laboratory, so my path eventually took me in the direction of becoming an artist. And so in college, I was a painter. I could draw people, I could draw realistically, but I really developed an affinity for abstraction. And this again, in terms of that lateral thinking, taking things that I see in front of me but interpreting them in some way. If you look at this painting, This actually was bought by a museum, believe it or not. This is actually not so abstract. You see architectural elements, things like cloth, etc., which actually are reflective of the environment of the warehouse that I was painting in. So I, throughout my life, have made it a practice of looking at something and then interpreting or using it in a different way. And I didn't think about this consciously when I was young. Like I was 20 when I was doing this, now I'm 60 years old. At the age of 60 now, I can look back and think about these things and understand them in a way that I had no idea what the hell I was doing when I was 20. And this will be the same for you guys as well. I hate to tell you, you might think you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, that's great. You're being honest with yourself, and that's actually fantastic because you're going to figure it out as you go. What I figured out was that I didn't want to be a starving artist. I wanted to use my art skills to make money, right? People go to law school and become a lawyer. People go to management school and become a manager. People go to medical school and become a doctor. But if you go to art school, you support your art like a drug habit, right? You get some other job to pay for the fact that you're an artist and you're not selling anything. And I was like, okay, screw that. I want to use my art skills, my design skills in a way that I can have a job and make money. Even though later I'm going to talk about how a job is not so important. So I'm going to be full of contradictions today. I was really captivated by Pixar, what they were doing before Disney partnered up with them, when they were doing short films and mouthwash commercials. This is does anybody know who this is from? What this is from? Pixar, yeah, Luxo Jr. So this is Luxo Jr., one of the first short films they did. When I saw this, I was just amazed. Like it was like nothing I'd ever seen. And I didn't understand how it was done. Like this was done, again, by scientists, by rocket scientists. Like, how is this even possible? What I realized through taking simple classes with Photoshop, etc., is that, oh, this is something I can do. I can work on a computer with my artistic skills and pursue a career. So that's what I did. I went to work at first for a studio called Boss Film Studio in Los Angeles. It was a visual effects company. And the amazing thing was, like, before I got my master's degree in computer graphics, when I just had my poor little painting degree as a bachelor, I couldn't get any work. As soon as I had this was back in 1994, my master's degree in computer graphics and animation, I was suddenly employable. So I got hired to a visual effects company. This was a very B-level science fiction film called Species, about a woman who comes down, an alien who comes down in the form of a woman to Earth and basically mates with humans to kind of take over humanity. Very low level. I remember the first day I went to work, so I was a computer guy, but they were still doing practical effects. They had two people in diving suits with rubber alien costumes inside of a water tank, like pretending they were fucking each other. This was like part of a dream sequence. That's just to see if everybody's awake. And I remember walking past this tank, and they're filming it, and water's splashing everywhere, and these two people in alien outfits like, And I was like, my grandmother would be so proud of me right now. This is the dream come true. I bring this up because what I did not know at the moment I walked in the door, but what I figured out within a few months, that the industry was flipping. The visual effects industry was going from practical, rubber suits, etc., optical effects, to digital. And that flip caught many companies, such as Boss Film, off guard. They had millions of dollars worth of optical printing equipment that were suddenly useless because of the digital revolution. And now we're seeing things like AI, etc., having the same transformative effect. So this is part of the ongoing churn and roll of history and the tide of change that we all just continue to live through and hopefully adapt to. So, as glamorous as it might sound to say, oh yeah, I worked in Hollywood on visual effects, this is pretty much what it's like. Is it done yet? Get it done! Where is the shot? Come on. A lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and but very cool to see the results, to see your name on a screen. This was back at the time that Jurassic Park had just come out, and people were like, we can do anything, and we couldn't quite do anything, but it was a very optimistic time. This also in CGI is when there were more jobs than there were people to fill them. Now it's the opposite in Hollywood. If you're following that at all, it's like there's way more people than there are jobs, especially with things like technological change having an effect. I left Boss Film after about a year and went to work at the Walt Disney Company. So this is my studio at Walt Disney. I was a supervisor in animation. Didn't start out as a supervisor, but worked my way up. And that was a great experience. There were so many talented people there. And to veer this back towards management, this is when I really had my first encounter with management. Because as a supervisor on the creative side, I had a manager with me, riding around, visiting the artists, making sure that people were on schedule, making sure that the creative process and the management metrics that we were looking at were matching and synchronized, talking to her when I thought that we needed more time, working with her or him, because I had different people coming in, to figure out what we can do on the management side to make things work better creatively, to get a better visual result, blah, blah, blah. So I really started to form a respect and an understanding for management, because I was no longer some person who was like, oh, those managers always telling me what to do, but I was working with management, collaboratively, creatively, to accomplish a goal, which is to make a movie. These are the, on Chicken Little as a supervisor, these are the supervisor on Chicken Little. What's wrong with this photo? Anybody want to say something? What's wrong with this picture? Don't be shy.
They're all guys.
Yeah, there you go. They're all white guys. So this was back in, like, what was this, 1999? No, this is about 2003, right? All white dudes. All very nice guys, except some of them actually have passed on. Different sexual orientations, but basically all white men. And so when you think about things like diversity, and depending on who you talk to and who's in politics, political power, diversity is either like something you're striving for or a dirty word. I'm very liberal, so I believe in diversity. Despite this photo, I was just there, right? But looking at it now, it's like, wow, that's a white bunch, and that's like a white pyramid of dudes. If you look at the same photo now for a movie like Zootopia 2, it looks much different. There's diversity of gender, there's diversity of race, there's diversity of economic strata, and I think that's because people just started paying more attention to it. And it's not about trying to give a position to somebody who doesn't deserve it. It's about letting people know that anybody deserves to be whatever they want. A big part of what I realized growing up in visiting schools was that there were many people who didn't think that they could become something because they didn't see an example of somebody who looked like them in that position. As a father of 2 young girls, I have 2 daughters, 7 and 10, you'll see them later. Not in person, sorry, but in photos. I realized that if they don't see somebody like them doing something, it doesn't necessarily occur to them that they can do that thing. So this is why, for example, historically there weren't as many women in programming, for example, or working as software developers, because they didn't see people, that's not something that I do, that's something that guys do. Or at Disney there was almost a stereotype of like, the men were the directors, the animation directors, and the women were the producers. Like you would see films where the producer was like oftentimes a woman. And like basically like babysitting this man-child who was trying to direct a film. So this has changed and evolved, thankfully. But it's something that also is situation dependent. Here in Taiwan, so if you had an Asian person in this pyramid, oh, that's more diverse. If you had an Asian person as a supervisor in Taiwan, you'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? We call that Tuesday. So it's a matter of like being aware of the context. But I digress. In terms of just some street cred, when I first came in, I worked on Fantasia 2000, which was the sequel to the original Fantasia. I worked on what we call Dinosaur, which was Disney's attempt at photorealistic 3D dinosaurs, but in this case they spoke to each other and had lips. It was really cool because Disney had acquired a visual effects company, and in the process, within one company you could do cartoony work and you can do photoreal work. Typically in Hollywood at that time, this is like the late 90s, if you want to do something more cartoony or more photoreal, you had to change companies. But Disney had all of this stuff, all of this diversity going on at the same time. Rain of Fire, photorealistic dragons, such as they are. And then Chicken Little, as I mentioned, which was the film where I really stretched my chops on supervising, working with managers, understanding structure and responsibilities, deliverables, and not just thinking purely creatively. The last thing I worked on at Disney before I left was Rapunzel. Sorry, this as most films go, not only at Disney but elsewhere, there are many title changes. The first title for this was called Rapunzel Unbraided, which sounds like a porno film. Rapunzel Unbraided. I was like, okay, we can't do that. So then they changed it to Tangled, which now if you see a lot of animated films, they have like these adjectives, like tangled or what is it? Snap. The research and development phase of this project is the time that I spent the most of my efforts on. Before it went into production, I was getting a little bit bored. People say, how can you get bored working at a company like Disney. I was being paid well, I was working on cool stuff, but it became like a routine. And this is something that you guys will find as well, that you get everything you think you wanted. Good job, good money, good colleagues, but then you're like, okay, like now what? Happily ever after is sometimes a recipe for boredom. So I wanted to go and make my own films, make my own movies. In the process, before I left, I worked on some things at Disney that were in development that never got made. So there's a lot of stuff at Disney, I would say 90% or more of the things that are being worked on you'll never see. Either an entire project or part of a project will be in the vault. So there's a lot of stuff that I did for development phase for Disney that ended up locked away, you'll never see it. But that actually engendered in me a hunger to create more, to be more involved with the development side. So when I left Disney, I did my own animated short film called Henry's Garden. This was sort of like some people who watch it say it's a combination between Frankenstein and Shrek. It's the complete opposite of the Disney aesthetic, and you can see this is very intentional. Like as an artist, I wanted to go in the complete opposite direction in every way. It's like black and white, kind of has that old-time footage look, and was completely self-funded. I worked on this with my wife and partner at the time, and it went on the film festival circuit. Didn't make any money, but it did open up a lot of opportunity. Indirectly, the entire reason I'm right here in front of you guys right now is because of this film, because it started to take me around the world to speak at festivals on its behalf. I met people who later on, in some cases decades later, this was not pre-planned, but decades later, hey Kev, haven't talked to you in a while, do you think you might want to come by and blah, blah, blah. So there are going to be things laterally, again, lateral thinking, that will come to you in your life if you just put those feelers out there, if you expose yourself, professionally speaking, to opportunity, meet people, and just throw lines, right? Like if you're fishing, just throwing lines out there, seeing what comes back to you later on. I've always taught throughout my career. So I taught at CalArts, I taught at the Beijing Film Academy, I taught, as Marco mentioned, at Taipei National University of the Arts. I've also given lectures like this quite extensively. I really enjoy doing it. It keeps me in check in terms of like not getting too old mentally, understanding what's important to younger generations, and also to make sure that I'm not losing touch with that. The big wake-up call for me was when I was at TNUA. This was not even so long ago, it was a few years ago. And I was showing some Disney classics, and I showed The Lion King. Disney's animated Lion King from like 1994, 95. And my students were like, there's a cartoon version of The Lion King? And I was like, oh my God. I felt super old at that point. Because the first Lion King they saw was the photoreal CGI version, right? And oh, this is so cool, there's a cartoon version. When did they make this? I was like, oh, like 30 years earlier. So that again, that's the kind of thing that keeps you realizing that even when I was trying to be current, you know, I would say, oh, I need to come up with a recent reference that the kids will understand. Start talking about The Matrix. People are like, what the fuck are you talking about? The Matrix? And we weren't even born when The Matrix came out. I said, oh yeah, right, you guys weren't born. So that's why I'm here today too. The process of teaching and speaking also led me to opportunities around the world. Speaking in Germany about machinima, talking in China about animation, etc. Just kind of getting out there, consulting, and this was as much for myself as for the people who I was consulting with, to keep myself in the loop and opening my eyes. At the Walt Disney Company, I was operating at the highest level of animation, but in a very narrow field. I had the blinders on, just focused on this. And there was so much going on in the world. So much going on in the world. We talk about multiculturalism, right, and dealing with that I just had no freaking idea was happening. Not just in my field, but just in life in general. And so I come from Cleveland, Ohio. I was like, Ohio's like a farm state, basically. And Cleveland is like 500,000 people, I think, at most. So once I started traveling, I was just eating this up. And it's really important because I remember there was one time I was in China, and I was in Zhengzhou, I think, and looking at, there was a girl there animating in 2D, and she was animating on a Nickelodeon project. It was a Nickelodeon TV project. And I looked at this and I said, there's a group of us, I said, you know, there's a lot of animators who would be angry to see that you're animating this here because it's what they call outsourcing. Like, oh, jobs are being stolen from America by people overseas. And I said, what would you say to people like that? And then the girl just looked up and just said the simplest, most amazing answer. She said, why should Americans think they're the only ones who deserve opportunities? And I was just blown away. I was like, good answer. Because this, and I talked to this girl more at the break. She came from a rural village, right? She trained at an art school. She was being paid nothing by American standards, but this was huge for her. As a girl in China who was in a village, now living in a city, doing something that's going to be on television in America, you know, it was like her dream. And then you have people conversely in America going, oh, they, them, those people are taking away our opportunities. So it's all a matter of perspective. Perspective is very, very important. There's no good or bad. I mean, well, there are some things that are good and bad. But in most cases, perspective is the key to understanding a situation and having an open mind about it. Yes?
Did you work for Rooster Teeth?
Did I work for who?
Did you work for Rooster Teeth?
No, I did not. This was an example when I was talking about revolutions in animation. I was talking about machinima, and so Rooster Teeth Productions, this is me talking about, hey, you guys, you want to see something that looks like it's actually crude, but is really forward-thinking and cool? Here's one example. So yeah, it was part of my my little example was that. Did you work at Rooster Teeth?
No, because I grew up watching Red vs. Blue with my brother. So it was
Okay.
really,
Yeah, it's
cool
very, you know,
reference.
using games to make movies, basically. It's like almost like a no-brainer. It's like, oh shit, you can do that, and pretty amazing stuff. Okay. I want to say that for somebody like me who was trained at Disney on the right way to do things and the best way to do things and the ultimate way to animate, there are people who would look at this and think it was garbage, but it's not. It's so innovative, so brilliant in terms of the approach, and especially for people who don't have the resources, but want to tell a story, or just want to screw around and, hey, it's actually kind of fun. You know, the sky's the limit. Okay, so I spent 12 years in China as initially as a consultant, then as a teacher. I lived a very weird life in China. When I got the offer to teach there, I was going through like a midlife crisis in the US. I was going through a divorce. I just wanted to change. And so when I got the offer to go halfway around the planet and teach at the Beijing Film Academy, I said, yeah, sure. And I got the contract and it said $7,000 a month. I thought, oh, okay, that's all right. And then I looked up, I didn't realize it was RMB, and I looked up and I was like, oh, shit, I can't live on that. 1,000 US a month, I can't, how am I gonna do that? And they're like, no, actually, Kevin, you kind of can live on that in China. So I had this weird life where I was living in a student dorm as like a 40-something-year-old man, right? Being flown first class to these like conferences, etc., meeting government officials, blah, 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 and then back to my little, like Spider-Man, right? Saving the world, and then Peter Parker going back to his crappy little apartment with a camera. But it was great because, again, I met a number of people, not the least of which my wife, and it was something that changed my life. Something that but really took a gut check, like when you go from living in a Spanish stucco home on West Los Angeles, making $250,000 US a year as a supervisor, and then suddenly, wham, you're living in a student dorm in Beijing, making like $1,000 a month, eating dumplings every day. You really have to think about, like, okay, is this what I want to do? Why am I doing this? And where do I think this is going to go? I actually didn't know where it was going to go, but I knew that I just wanted something different than what I had. So sometimes you don't know where you're going, but you know what you're trying to get away from, and put yourself out into a situation where things will find you that can change your life. So, my thing in China was basically taking Disney principles of storytelling, etc., and bringing those to Chinese projects. So these are actually two very good friends. Here's my wife, Wen, our good friend, Yan Yi. We formed a company together in China called Moli Jiaozi, the magic dumpling, which our thing was basically to combine Disney-level storytelling with rock-bottom, starving artists, Chinese prices and schedules. And the interesting thing about what we were doing is that we were developing content for TV, for mobile, for film, with Chinese audiences in mind, not just in China, but in Asia Pacific in general. And we were focusing on the development side. So we were not a production company. We were developing the stories, the designs, etc. The interesting thing about this is that because we were small, this is around 2008, 2009, in China, nobody cared about you if you're small. Like, oh, we want to come see your studio. Where's your building? Oh, no, we just have an apartment. Like, what is so small? You guys must be nothing. It's like, okay, yeah. Not realizing that companies like Apple and Pixar started in garages, right? Those big trees that everybody admires started out as a little sapling. Not every sapling becomes a big tree, but big trees don't just appear out of nowhere. But people were just ignoring us. However, internationally, in magazines and festivals, we were getting noticed. Like, hey, there's this company in China that's doing high-level work. What they're doing with Chinese-themed content, blah, 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 blah. Eventually, Disney noticed and said, hey, you used to work for us, right? Like, yep, and you're in China now, yep, and you went there on your own, and you're doing this stuff, Do you want to come back and work for us and develop content for China, for Disney? Sure. They slid a piece of paper across the table. That'll work. And there we were. So we, myself and my colleagues went and we ran a team in Beijing for a few years that was developing shows for Disney, Chinese shows for Disney, in the Disney way, but with the Chinese audience in mind. So in cases where I was talking, I had an American boss and a Chinese boss, and if there was ever a difference in them finding something funny or not, I said, hey, look, American boss, this is for the Chinese audience. So I know that you don't get it, that's fine, but the Chinese audience is cracking up when they see this scene, so we're gonna go with that. And when you talk about multiculturalism, my job as a vice president of this team, imagine you're crossing the ocean, and you've got 1 foot on one sea turtle, and you've got another foot on another sea turtle. And you're going across the ocean, and first of all, you're hoping the turtles don't just go under, but you're also hoping the turtles just keep going in the same direction and not sort of going in opposite directions. My job was to keep those turtles running in the same direction, culturally, business-wise, management-wise, while my team was having fun creating cool stuff. So we created a number of shows. We did live action shows. We did some live action adaptations of American shows. This is, there's an American show called Kicking It. It's about like a group of kids who are in like a kung fu dojo, karate dojo. We changed it to a kung fu club in Shanghai. This is, I don't know if any of you guys know The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. There's a live action Disney show called The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Yes. 2 kids whose mom lives in a hotel, and as a singer, she works there, and yeah. This is the Chinese version of that. We also did a number of, this is Young Mulan. It's about Mulan's daughter. She and her guy hooked up and had a daughter who was like the complete opposite of Mulan in every way possible. She's sort of like a Hollywood brat who is dealing with the fact that her mother is super famous, and you either like try to outdo your mother's fame or you go in the opposite direction, and what kind of tensions does that create? This one, Stone Lions, went on the air, CCTV, #1 show. The basic premise of this, it's a Stone Lion buddy comedy. I can't believe nobody had done this yet. But as you know, for a variety of reasons, in China, it's hard for them sometimes to have fun with their own culture because there are so many restrictions on what you can say, what you can do, what you can't do, what you shouldn't do, that people feel kind of boxed in. So my job oftentimes was not coming in as a foreigner trying to say what you should do, but just having an outside point of view. And this idea was, for the Stone Lion buddy comedy, everybody knows Stone Lions, right? You see them everywhere. But what you don't know is they have a secret. The secret is that they're alive. And the reason that they have this secret and keep this secret is because they have 2 rules. Rule #1, don't move. Rule #2, don't talk. So during the day, they're perfectly alive, but they're not moving, they're not talking. At night, they come alive and help defend people against monsters and demons and so forth who are like terrorizing people or causing trouble. These guys were sort of like the Dumb and Dumber Stone Lions, so they didn't have this noble job because they kept screwing up. They would typically, instead of being dropped in front of a bank or like an embassy, they were typically assigned to like a convenience store or a public toilet, and they would screw up, get fired, next job, and that was the cycle of the episodes. The great thing about this is that if I pitched it just like that, and this wasn't terribly prepared at all, people could repeat it back to me. That's a great pitch. If you have an idea for anything, whether you're talking about creative or management, if you can express your idea to somebody in a way that's so simple and so understandable that they can then tell it to somebody else, that's the most important thing. So for example, let's say one of you guys goes and works at a company and you're working as a manager, junior manager, and you have an idea for something. You should be able to express that idea in such a way that other people understand it very clearly and can repeat it to their colleagues, to people above them, because that's how you start to have influence. In an era where everything is changing, technology is changing, AI is flipping everything on its head, the one thing that I think will always be a constant of value is communication. If you can communicate your ideas, your intentions, who you are, what you think is important, verbally, visually, you'll be ahead of the curve. Because the need for people to communicate and connect will not change, even though the way that we communicate and the way that we connect is constantly evolving. So, I keep leaving places. I left Disney twice. I left Disney again after a few years there. Disney had this idea that they were going to have local teams everywhere in the world that were going to do content for that area. Like, we're going to have a local team for India, we're going to have a local team for South America, we're going to have a local team for China or Japan or whatever. And then they decided, maybe we just want to like bring everything back to Burbank and kind of centralize it in the US for a variety of reasons. Oh, I remember what it was. You guys know Disney Plus, right? Yes, you probably haven't, I've got it. Before Disney Plus, there was, what the hell were they calling it? I forget what they were calling it, but Disney had the idea of doing a streaming service. It wasn't called Disney Plus, it was called something else. And they said, well, we don't need to have these local teams in different parts of the world. We'll just stream everything from the US, it'll be fine. Well, guess what? It was fine except for like 1 or 2 countries, one of which was China. You can't just stream stuff into China. And I remember somebody saying, it'll be fine. The digital space in China is unregulated. And this was back in 2014. They said there's no regulation in digital space in China. I said, not now, but I said with the eye of Sauron eventually, whoa, it's going to be right on the digital space, and then it's going to be locked down tighter than anything you've ever seen. It's not, Kevin, you're just protecting your turn. I don't know, I'm not saying this for my own sake. I think that's going to happen. And sure enough, Disney cut a deal. This was the pre-Disney Plus streaming service. They cut a deal with Alibaba to sell these OTT devices that would go and they were bundled with the service, etc. That went out, like millions of these were sold. And then the Chinese government like, bam, nope. And they had to take them all back. Disney published a page in some newspaper in Chinese apologizing, saying, we weren't trying to go around regulations, we just blah, 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 like mea culpa, mea culpa. So, long story short, no streaming officially into China, right? If you look at the streaming services, not just Disney Plus, but many of them, that's a big sort of like no-go for Western streaming. However, of course, the streaming environment in China natively is huge and very vibrant. All right, I digress. How am I doing on time? 2:40. When are we taking our break?
At 2. Just over at 2.
At 2, oh my God, I skipped it at 3. Okay, I think we're in good shape. When I left Disney, another reason was that my first child was born. So I'm a late life dad. I was 51, I think 49, 50 when my first daughter was born. My wife wasn't that old, that's how that works. But she was born and I just wanted to kind of shift gears a bit. So I wanted to spend more time with my family, with my new daughter. And I shifted back more to like my art roots, drawing again directly. I published a number of books, digital and also physical, for actually for my daughter, with my daughter in mind, wanting to do something that when she grew up, even when she grew up from like 0 to 2, I could sit with her and read and she could appreciate. So really trying to ground myself in something more personal, especially because as much as I learned to love managers and as much as I learned to love management, I just was so exhausted by dealing with like teams of 100 people and like spreadsheets and Excel and all of that, and just the sheer kind of like volume of that organizational, the inverse pyramid kind of bearing down on you, that it was nice to just sit there with my iPad and just draw a book, on my own. So you'll find this as well, that this doesn't necessarily mean that you'll do something quick and then go to something more personal and then back into something more intense. Sometimes you'll do these at the same time. You'll have your job, it may be very intense, and there's something you do just for yourself. Maybe it's not even creating something, it's just reading or listening to music, but something for you and nobody else. So here's Claire, so that's my daughter. If you've never seen the inside of a Beijing kindergarten, ta-da, here it is. Looks kind of like a regular kindergarten, doesn't it? Reading one of the books to her and her classmates. So this was really nice. It was actually great for me to be able to like have that. I was somebody who, at my age and also having gone through a marriage that didn't work out, I kind of gave up on having kids. And then bam, kids. So that's also the way life works. You'll think that something's not going to happen for you and then it does. Or you'll think that something is going to happen for you and it doesn't. And it may be perfectly fine. Either way. VR was really coming up at this point. So I think this was around the time that Facebook bought Oculus for like $6 billion or something. This is just before they became Meta. But as soon as Zuckerberg got into VR, people were like, oh my God, let's all get into VR. So in China, when I was there from like 2008 to 15, there were animation bases everywhere. Like, let's have an animation base. So how about an animation base? And what could make this civic plan better? Maybe an animation base, and just having these things sprout up, and most of them ended up being unused, unoccupied. So then, when VR was a big thing, it's like, hey, we should convert that animation base into a VR base. Let's make that a VR base. I think, yeah, it should be a VR base. Yes, a VR base. And so this was a big booming area of opportunity, and I was also just very interested in this. When I was in college, in graduate school, in the early 90s, we had VR equipment, but it was so crude. It's like you put it on and throw up immediately because there's this disconnect between what you're seeing and what you're feeling. But of course, things have progressed quite a bit. And especially here, you know, in Taiwan, HTC with their Vive units, etc., is part of the leading edge of that. So I reinvented myself somewhat to be more involved with immersive media. So I was still at the Beijing Film Academy, but now helping with their new interactive center, developing projects for live action and also for animation in VR, right? And it was really exciting, very interesting intellectually, very interesting creatively. And we were developing projects. We were, these are the Mogao caves, where we were taking the digital data that was saved of those caves in case they ever get destroyed, and then using that to have like an experience where you can go into the cave, which you typically can't just walk into because they're restricted. And we had animated Asperas, which would come off of the wall and like talk to you or play instruments for you. And there's my daughter, so there's Claire. So Claire has always been like hovering around animation studios or tech studios. I realized this. You'll see like actors who their kids become an actor, or musicians who their kids become a musician. And oftentimes those parents will say, don't be an actor, don't be a musician, it's too hard. But the kids do anyway. A lot of it's just because that's what they know. Like Claire grew up thinking that every parent makes cartoons. like we weren't special, like everybody makes cartoons, that's just what you do. The same way she draws on paper or reads a book, you make cartoons. No, not everybody makes cartoons, or does VR. And then when she found out that we also don't make a lot of money, she was like, what? What are you doing? But didn't you? Yeah, we did. And it didn't make it, not so much. Why do you do it? I don't know, we have to, it's something we feel. But this was a great time because there was a sort of a refresh in terms of how the things that I love to do, storytelling, creating new worlds, was being expressed in this, 360 immersive scope. And, sorry, well, it's okay. I thought it was my coffee. The one thing that I appreciated being in China was that if they decide they want to do something, they just kind of go for it. And if you could ride that, there was a certain amount of benefits. So at this interactive center, for example, they say, oh, we got funding from the government to have a conference. And we need 30 foreigners and we need 30 people from China. 30 people from China, no problem. You go get the foreigners. I'm like, all right, what's the budget? They say, just get them over here. All right, fine. And we did it. So suddenly, boom, there's this thing, and bang, there's me. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of unexpected. But as I mentioned, opportunities like this will come along. Chances like this will come along. And you just have to put yourself, luck is putting yourself at the intersection of opportunity and your own ability, right? Something comes up, you have a certain ability, and also just say yes, just going for it. I took improv class when I was in Los Angeles, not because I want to be an actor or anything, but just to try to be more comfortable speaking and just being in situations in general. And has anybody ever done an improv class? You know what it is, right? Where you get up and improvise, you make an improv class where you improvise. An improv class is where you are given a topic or a situation, and then you kind of roll with it. You're not trying to be funny. Usually you're funniest when you're not trying to be funny. But you get used to accepting the offering, as they call it. And there's this one principle called yes and, where if, for example, if Kang said, oh look, there's a dog there, I think he's about to take a shit. I was like, oh my God, I hate shit. I'm basically playing off of what he said. I'm not saying, that's not a dog, that's a rabbit, what are you talking about? And then he's like, wait a minute, you just blocked me here. So, yes and. And when you start to yes and, it makes you very aware in life of how many times you say no. Hey, you want to go to the park? And nah, you know, or how about we see a movie this weekend? Yeah, look, maybe, I'll let you know. You know, we were constantly kind of backing away from things instead of just like accepting it and saying, yeah, sure, I do that. And this happened to be a lot in China where I didn't know much Chinese. I still don't, but I know a little bit more now than I knew then. But I knew one thing is that "hao" was very good to say. Like if somebody's like blah 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 blah, blah like "hao," and then there was one time I was trying to buy a razor, and I was looking at these razors, and the person was like showing them to me, and like oh da 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 da. I had just gotten to China, like I was there for like a week, but I needed a shave, and I was like "hao, hao, 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 hao," and then at the end they said "ah." And I only said this one word. I also learned that if somebody said blah 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 ma, it's like oh shit, that's a question. I don't know what they asked, but it's a question. And so what I learned to say in response to that was "sui bian." Now you have to be careful. You have to be careful. Because somebody's like, you know, they might be saying, would you like, because I had that happen, like, sui bian, or, you know, 都可以. And then like, bam, this gigantic fruit basket would show up on my table at the restaurant. Shit, did I order that? I guess I did. Or like the taxi driver, should I take the longest, most expensive route from the airport to your apartment? Sure, you know, so you have to watch yourself. But, and again, I'm not trying to sound like the ugly American, where you should learn the language. But, I also learned that for somebody who talks as much as I do, I don't have to say too much in most of those situations. Oh, the one thing that was really tough for me was because when you grow up with a certain pronunciation and structure, and so I could never like fu rian, I couldn't. It killed me to try to learn how to say that. And I had a tutor who was trying to work with me, and we were in a cafe, and I was trying to say fu rian, and then I heard somebody say fu ya, and like the person goes over to order, and I said, hey, that seemed to work better. So I said fu ya, and then the person came over, and my tutor said, don't say that. And so I said that's a Beijing accent, etc. I said it one time here in Taiwan.
Oh my God.
Oh man, I got served so fast. You wouldn't believe it. And then, okay, please leave.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm way off topic here. In 2016, I started talking about the impact of AI. Just because somebody said, hey, can you do a talk on the impact of AI? And I said, sure, kind of the same way that Marco was like, you talk about multiculturalism? I said, sure, and then I'm not really. But I talked about AI, and I researched it, and I knew about it. I saw the movies, right, Terminator, etc. I knew the robots are going to kill us eventually. But I educated myself. So this is 2016 on things that AI is good at, like retrieving data and predicting things based on patterns, and generative technology, and you know, will it be self-aware? Well, maybe. And I said, this is in 2015, I showed all of the jobs that will be disrupted by AI. If you're a bank teller, you're screwed. If you're a truck driver, automated, you know, cars, etc. Da da da. And I said, however, those of you here in the audience who are in the creative fields, don't worry. It's going to be at least 40 years, maybe 50. Before an AI disrupts the creative industry. I said this 9 years ago. So I guess the lesson here is don't listen to me. Right? Anything I'm saying today, any advice I give you, I'm just bullshit. But I had no idea it was going to happen that fast, and it did. And this was something though that had interested me. This is before the big flip. So 2022 is when, like with ChatGPT, is when things really like went off to the races. But this is still before the pandemic. So we're going to use the pandemic as an inflection point. Right? It's almost 3 o'clock. Where I was still talking about interactive environments, but I started talking about AI because from a creative standpoint, if you have an interactive environment where anything can happen, it's impossible to pre-animate, to pre-generate all the assets and the interactions that you need to have in case I'm going to go talk to Kang for a minute, or I'm going to talk to this guy over here. No, actually I changed my mind, I'm going to go talk to Marco, and we're going to go out to the parking lot and get into a car and drive somewhere. You can't, it's infinite branching. So one thing I mentioned in my talks was how, you know, whether you think the bots are going to save us or kill us, and they're actually going to do both. Like everything else, like a knife, it can save you, also can kill you. That's going to be the constant. That it's necessary for the type of entertainment that we are looking for, where I can walk into a room and open a door, and then that environment is instantly generated and responds to me. That is something that you're starting to see if you're using any kind of AI tools to talk to or to ask questions about for entertainment, or even just with ChatGPT. These things are responding to you in real time in ways that are quite complex. And so that ability for that technology to be able to do that is very, very useful for entertainment. It's also, as I'll get to in the second half of my speech, can be a lifesaver, literally, for many, many people. So, we're going to take our break. Wow, right on time. And this is completely unrehearsed. And then something happened. We'll talk about it in a minute, but let's go ahead and do whatever you do at the break. And then what happened? So here we go. The future is lateral, surely. On January 8th, 2020, my family and I packed our stuff for one of our usual trips from Beijing to Taipei. So my wife, was born in Taichung, so she's Taiwanese, and she went to graduate school in Beijing and then stayed there for work. So she had been living and working in China for a while. I used to joke with her that people would think she's either like a very polite Chinese person or a very rude Taiwanese person, because culturally and how she talks, she's like very much a blend of the two. But we would come back to Taiwan 3 or 4 times a year to do all of our dental and medical work here, quite honestly, also to visit her family, etc. So January 8th, 2020 seemed like, just ordinary time. We packed light. So here's they're older now. My daughters, there's Claire and Emma, and sunny day in Beijing. Now, if you told me when I was flying out of Beijing towards Taipei, if you said, hey Kevin, you know what? You're never going back to China. Like, what do you mean you're never going back to China? You're never going back. This is it. You're leaving. What's going to happen? Is there a war? No war. Am I dead? No, you're alive. Are my family? Yeah, they're all okay, but you're never going back. I'm like, well, what happened? COVID. So, as we were leaving Beijing, I remember we were just hearing reports, oh, something's up in Wuhan. And it's like, oh, something's always up somewhere, like whatever. And we leave. And then when we get to Taiwan, initially it's fine, but then stuff starts happening right away. Like there's the lockdown, it's like, oh shit. And then like all this other stuff happens, like, oh shit. Like what's going on here? Very quickly we found ourselves living as refugees in my father-in-law's apartment. Like we have like 2 little suitcases, we had packed light, all of our electronics back in Beijing, everything we owned, bank accounts, etc. back there, and the world was shutting down. Like everything is like locking down. I remember friends in Beijing were like, Kevin, you better get your ass back here. They're going to close the borders. I'm like, get my ass back into what? Like nobody knew what was going on. There's no information. And so, long story short, we ended up stranded basically in Taipei. Now, there were people, hundreds, thousands of people were in this situation, especially because this happened during Chinese New Year. Almost every foreigner I know, personally, and many I don't know who were in China, had this situation where they were either in their own home country or somewhere else on vacation when this all went down. So one thing that was comforting was I learned that I was not alone, right? Because everybody's going through this. But we didn't know what we were going through. And I remember asking my wife, I said, okay, so we're not going back. I said, so SARS-1, how long did that take? She was like, oh, a couple months and it was over. But people were scared to death, right? She actually thought SARS-1, I'm going to die. Like when she was in Beijing, people were jumping out of hospital windows. You guys know the stories, right? It was horrible. But it was over in 2 months. I was in America at the time. I heard, oh yeah, there's some bird flu going on in Asia. And we were like, whatever, we didn't care, right? So it was disconnected. So I said, okay, 2 months, fine. I looked at my passport, because as an American, I don't have a visa. I have like a visa-free entry, visa-exempt entry. How long? 90 days, plenty of time, right? 90 days come up, I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Like, it's still going on? So I go to the NIA, they stamp me with a 90-day extension. All right, half a year. I got 108 days. This will definitely be over by the summer of 2020, get back to business. Summer comes up, and I was like, oh my God. Like, and at that point, you realize, like, this is something completely different than any of us could have expected. And also, as a father, I've got my kids looking at me like, Daddy, what's going on? And I have no answer. So you want to talk about the unexpected, having to deal with things that are out of your imagination. This was one. And so trying to reassure them, hey, don't worry, it's fine, but also not knowing what the F is going on. One big shift that I had to make, and actually my wife helped me make it, is she put our oldest daughter, Claire at the time, into a kindergarten in Taipei. She said, you know what, I'm putting her into school. Because we were still doing online stuff with the Beijing. She's like, I'm putting her in here. And then like a light switched in my head, like, okay, I am not a refugee in Taiwan. I am reestablishing myself here. Reset button, I'm here now. This is my base. And once I did that, it wasn't easier, but at least I had a vector. I talk about management. It was like, okay, I can start to make a plan for what do I have to do to reorient myself here. Checklist, tick those boxes. So the bigger picture was this. COVID didn't disrupt the system, but it exposed that the system was already fragile. I told my students, so Taiwan was lucky actually during this time. Taiwan was in this bubble. You guys remember, like from 2020 until when the bubble broke, 2022? When the contact tracing broke down, and then because there was some pilot who had an affair with a stewardess who went to a spa and everything went to hell. But for 2 years it was pretty good. Like from 2020 to like 2022 we were in this bubble. And I had friends of mine who were on like in America, April 2020 America went boom, and everybody's locked in their homes, freaking out. And dead bodies are stacking up in New York in refrigerator trucks. And I had friends who were looking at my Facebook and seeing me hanging out in Don Park with no mask in 2020, and like, oh Kevin, you're so lucky, you're in this little bubble. And I said, yeah, but I said, if you had to choose between, they were like, I'm locked in my fucking house in LA, like I can't get out. I said, okay, let me ask you this. If you had a choice between being locked in your house for a year, your own house, or leaving your house one day and never going back, what would you choose? And like, what do you mean like leaving my house and never going back? I said, well, what if one day you left your house, a normal day, and you never went back? And I said, what? And I said, that's my situation. And I wasn't trying to like look for sympathy, but yeah, I guess being locked in my own house for a year and then coming out later is not so bad. So everybody was going through this in some different way. And students of mine here at the art school always were struggling with their parents. Why don't you learn something practical? How you're gonna waste your life on this art thing and just chasing your dreams, and like, why don't you get a practical, reliable skill, like management or something like that? The reality is that COVID shows that nothing's reliable. You work in a bank, the bank is closed. You work for an airline, the airline shuts down. All of those things that we thought were reliable and stable suddenly were upended. And ironically, in many cases, the people who were the creatives, and there's something I'm saying this subjectively, but the people who were the creators handled this period of time better because number one, if you are a creator, you deal with uncertainty and doubt every day when you're doing what you're doing. Number two, you're used to the uncertainty and you can actually use your creative practice every day. You can write, you can draw, you can conceptualize something, plan in a way that keeps you from spiraling into despair because you don't know what's happening. So our system is fragile. This whole sort of system of organization that we have, society, civility, it's very fragile. Events like COVID are what they call black swan events. The outlier, something that you don't anticipate happening, but which causes a massive change just across the board. And now it's over, and we're like, okay, so that happened. And nobody learned anything. In China, nobody learned anything. In America, nobody learned anything. So the next one, there's going to be a next one. It's going to come probably in the next 5 or 10 years. It's going to be worse, right? Because we didn't learn anything. And we were lucky that COVID, as it, especially when the bubble burst here, and people started catching it, my students were freaking out. I said, hey, look, I showed them, talk about management or charts, I showed them two charts. I said, look, number of cases in Taiwan was spiking, going way up. Oh my God, it's like straight up, like a rocket. I said also, but look at the deaths, way down. I said, what does that tell us? More people are catching it, but it's much less fatal, right? If you caught the first strain or the second strain, you were in big trouble. The people in Italy, right, who were in the ventilators, that was the first or second strain that turned your lungs into glue, right? When I eventually I got all my shots, but I still got COVID. The shots were not to prevent you from getting COVID. The shots were so you could handle having COVID better. And I think when I got it, was it Omicron? Was it that? I forgot, I lost. There's all these different names. But I got one of the ones where it was just like a really, really bad flu. So the point is this, evolution. The thing that we thought was just going to ruin everything, we got through it. But we can't just think, oh, well, that'll never happen again. Something like that will happen, but it probably won't be the same thing. It'll be something else So if your plan, how many of you here are, well, I guess you're all planners, right? You're managers, I hope you're all planners. But if your plan requires a predictable world, you don't have a plan, you have a fantasy. When I was working with my manager at Disney on our production schedule, our producer would say, okay, what's your plan? He said, what's your plan B, your contingency? Okay, it's this. What's your plan C? We don't have a plan C. Okay, get one and come back and tell me what it is, right? Because he said you'll probably be down to plan C or D or some hybrid of those by the time we're done with this movie. So things are going to be unpredictable. Things are going to change, and to figure out how you can handle that, or at least have a plan to buy yourself time while you're figuring out the plan for what you're facing that you didn't expect, is something you have to do. In life, in work, it's necessary. In our case, excuse me, this also helps to clarify what's important. I had a friend, I got on the phone with him on WeChat, and had him walk through our apartment in Beijing and kind of like circle everything we wanted. We sold off or gave away pretty much everything in the apartment except for things that mattered to us. Clothes, books that we had had for many years, photo albums that were physical or some kind of keepsakes, things that were important to us. Hard drives. In China, cloud access was kind of tricky because I didn't want to be on a Chinese cloud and it was hard to access the Western cloud. So I used physical media to back my stuff up. So, you know, getting these kind of things back was very, very important. And then just reestablishing art supplies. Gotta have my art supplies. Need my shoes. Actually, you don't really need that stuff. The funny thing is that by the time this came, this truck arrived in November. So by the time we went through deciding to stay in Taiwan, which is the summer, and then talking to a friend to help us ship the stuff, and then it getting stuck in customs in some port in Taiwan, and talking to them about, hey, this is our stuff, and blah, blah, don't tax us on it, please. And then finally getting it, it was November. And by November, we didn't really need it. Like, we had lived for almost a year without our stuff. So you really just need yourself. All the things you think you need, you really don't. And I have to tell you, the dark secret is that many of these boxes still have not been opened. They're sitting there. Some of them probably are important. Wedding, right? There's probably something in there that's important related, like an old centerpiece that's dried up. But the most important thing was floral print dresses. Getting everybody kind of back to normal. So for my family, my wife, my daughters, like just trying to establish some sort of sense of normalcy. We were fortunate. Being stuck in Taiwan was the best place you could be stuck. And it's still the best place I feel to be in the world. That's why I'm still here. People say, why are you still in Taiwan? It's the best place to be. And I'll get to that too, about exactly why for me. But my wife, you know, being from here, etc., having family, having that support structure was incredibly important. So the problem was that I couldn't work here. I didn't have a work visa, etc. So there were things that we had to do so that I can get legal, like being able to teach and accept money without getting deported, and just get back on my feet. Before I got back on my feet, I talked about having something that you do for yourself that keeps you sane. I blog, I will do vlogging and interviews, chatting with friends, etc. Put that stuff on my website. You can see this if you got my link, and I'll show it later. I kept doing this throughout COVID, including about COVID, like during the time of COVID and what was happening. I had interviews that I was doing, this is a friend of mine who was stuck in Hangzhou, and chatting with him about his experience there, just to keep myself sane and to keep doing something normal in the midst of this abnormal situation. So that's important. Something that does not rely on an employer, something that doesn't matter to your family, but just matters to you, is key to keep yourself level throughout these ups and downs. Your biggest challenge, I know all you guys want to find a job, but your biggest challenge in life is not finding a job. It's escaping the mindset that thinks that a job will suit you. You are probably going to have many jobs in your life. Hopefully those jobs will be part of a career or a vocation, something you love to do that carries you through your life. And different jobs, different companies, different bosses, including companies that you form yourself, will just come and go as part of that flow of pursuing what you love to do. Having said that, I got a job. So I eventually got my gold card, my foreign expert gold card, which allowed me to work here. And I taught, as Marco said, at the Taipei National University of the Arts. This spiral in the road there is a really great symbol for that time, just how crazy things were. It's up in Guangdu, so there's Taipei City down below. But it was great to get back to teaching. So I was teaching a variety of courses, everything ranging from just like life drawing to how Hollywood works, the business of Hollywood, independent production, including virtual reality, etc., the history of animation, how to pitch a project. And this is something I love to do. As you could probably tell. I love talking, but I just like being engaged in learning the things that I talk about. So honestly, for a lot of these things, I had done animation, I had done life drawing, I've pitched projects, I've made interactive experiences, but it's always changing. The way you do it, the reasons why you do it, the audiences who you're doing it for is constantly evolving. So it's never the same old thing. And the biggest challenge as I get older is that my experience, you'll find this too, your experience can become a trap. Because you'll refer to your experience, but your experience is the way things used to be. Some kid, or people like yourselves, young people who don't necessarily have the experience, the advantage you have is you don't know what you should or should not do. You just do, just try it. And that's the one thing I want to emphasize is that no matter what you're doing, if you're working as a manager, if you're working as a creator of some sort, managers and creators are basically the same thing, because a manager is creating a structure, right? You're building structure that allows people, including yourself, to function. This is something that you really want to do for yourself and to constantly think about what you want to do and not worry about any fear. Oh, I don't know if I have enough experience to do that. I don't know if I'm the right person or if I'm qualified. Just go for it. So, it's not to refine this, it's not what job should I have, but what relevance do I want to have. So, for me here, it was to start my company, Lateral, that Marco mentioned, in Taipei, with my wife and partner, Yuan. So it's a Taiwanese company, she's the owner, and the co-owner, the unpaid co-owner. We work together as entrepreneurs. I joke about being unpaid, but basically, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a boss of your own company, the first people you pay are the people who work for you, right? The last person who you pay is yourself. It's been great. So this was back, you can see 2021. So now people are starting to wear masks here. Okay, I think the bubble's bursting. But we started to pitch projects. We started to give lectures on animation, etc., engaging with the community. Previously, when I had come to Taiwan, it was just kind of friends and family. I didn't really engage professionally. But once we decided, okay, now we live here, and we even had to tell people, they said, so how long are you staying in Taiwan? I said, I'm here permanently. You're here? Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Like, so if the pandemic ends, you're going to stay here? Yeah, we're building our root, our base is here. And engaging with the community in that way. Excuse me. So, projects like Hidden in the Peach Blossom Garden, which is about a girl in the future who discovers the ancient land of Shangri-La beneath the earth and uses that discovery as a way to regenerate the earth, which has been poisoned. I think this is set in 2076, something like that, is one of our projects. Engaging with, this is Tsai Homie, who used to be the head of Taika, the Taipei Creative Content Agency, and just even, I'm a foreigner, right, an American, but being here for Taiwan, representing for Taiwan in terms of the content we're doing at festivals, etc. This is in Singapore, where Taiwan was coming out with animation and live action projects, including one of our own. This is another one of our projects, sci-fi project, Orion DSSR, and we pitched this and got funding for this from the Taiwanese government to create the series and a teaser, etc. So Taiwan has been very good to me. I'm not just saying this to be nice, but it's really been good to me, to my family, to our company in terms of trying to support the arts. Not just because Taiwan, we just want to support the arts. It's strategic. Like, culture can save you. Like, the reason that America has become so influential, or used to be so influential around the world, is because American culture was pervasive. And if you capture the hearts and minds of people, and they pay attention to you, that's to your advantage. More people are aware of Taiwan now in the world than ever before, for a variety of reasons. But like with TSMC, right, people, there's the head, right? People understand the importance of like the chips. And oh shit, you mean these chips are in everything? And almost all of them come from Taiwan? Holy crap. Didn't know that. And that silicon shield is very important for Taiwan. But also culturally, capturing the hearts of people. If you're creating content, shows and things that people around the world love, and they're like, well, that's from Taiwan, cool. You see South Korea doing this. right? Not only with K-pop, but also their television shows, things like Squid Game, etc. More people in the world are aware of South Korea than ever before. So I believe that there's a purpose to this beyond just my own personal interest in storytelling, beyond just creating cool shows, hopefully, there's a strategic value for the survival of a culture and a country, quite frankly. So taking it back down to something more humble and innocent, Dreamcats. This is a children's show. So we have content, you can just tell from the images here, ranging from things for adults to things for children. I'm not going to show you a bunch of clips now, although I do have a teaser at the very end. But if you go to my website, and I'll get the link again, you can see links to different clips and teasers and so forth for all of these projects. And these are all developed here in Taiwan for the world. So for Taiwan, but also Taiwan as part of the world. These are shows that are being developed for international audiences, international quality from here. And with this ecosystem, so my point of all of this is that my wife and I just re-engaged with the Taiwan creative ecosystem for film, video, entertainment in a way that has been very rewarding for us. And after being, quite frankly, kind of isolated with the pandemic and all of that, that engagement, so I encourage you guys, networking is so important. Really, the people sitting next to you, the people who you're friends with, or even the people you're not friends with, are going to be the most important people in your lives going forward in ways that you cannot anticipate. You may be apart for 10 years and never see each other, and then suddenly you reconnect either online or in person, and there's an opportunity, and you were both from here, and there you go. You just don't know. So talking to people, putting yourself out there, engaging, stretching yourself, metaphorically speaking, is really important. So this goes back to lateral thinking, and it's not about creativity, it's about survival. In my case, lateral thinking about, I can use this and do that with a story or whatever, is something I do. But lateral thinking in terms of how a sideways opportunity may be to your advantage is for your survival, quite literally, professionally and personally. We live in a time of great political upheaval, right? There are wars going on, threats of wars, around the world. And the people in charge are not necessarily, don't have the best heads on their shoulders at the moment. So this is something that we're dealing with. The world always has faced this, right? We've always had wars, upheavals, etc. But for that very reason, it's something that we have to be aware of. It's living in Taiwan, everybody knows that there's always this kind of cloud hanging, and you never know what's going to happen. You have to be mindful of that. Technological upheaval, artificial intelligence turning everything on its head, people freaking out, losing their minds, and in many cases for good reason. A lot of it's just fear of the unknown. And then also the fear of the known, like, oh shit, I did lose my job to an AI. And it's never that direct, but suddenly they don't need you as much anymore. And it's because certain things that you did, if a machine can do it, whether it's manufacturing or even cognitive, you're gone, right? So you have to think about how to use these things as a tool to your advantage, because your bosses or your prospective bosses are also thinking the same thing. This one, perhaps one of the biggest ones, is climate change. This was something many people in America were denying forever. Now we're seeing it in ways that people sometimes don't even realize is climate change, but is. Like, well, that storm was unusually powerful. It killed more people than those storms normally do. Yeah, it's because there's more water evaporating, going up, and then dropping down. So the floods are bigger, they happen more frequently. Well, yeah, we've always had floods, but these do seem to be a little larger than normal. It's because of reasons that are very well documented and predictable, and something that we have to deal with. We're past the point where it's going to get fixed, and nobody seems to want to fix it anyway. So in terms of like where you live, how close to the water are you, what's your plan if something were to happen suddenly. You guys know about this in Taiwan. The large earthquake that we had, what was it, a couple years ago? Well, surprisingly, my daughter and I ended up on the news in America. So this is our apartment here in Taiwan. But I was posting some images of my daughter with her little hood on in her school when the big one hit. And people saw it and said, hey, would you guys mind being on the TV and talking about it? So she talked about this. And she was really freaked out about earthquakes. The first earthquake she ever experienced, she was terrified. But then, and that was actually before we lived in Taiwan. We were visiting, and it was just a little shaker, but she was panicking. And then now she's just like, okay, whatever, like get under the table. We were lucky, of course, because a lot of people died in this earthquake and were injured in terrible ways. So we were quite fortunate. But the thing I was proud of is that she handled it without panicking. And that's good because she's going to have to continue. My children, everybody's children, are going to have to handle these unexpected things in ways that's going to require a cool head, management of the situation. All right, so this happened, therefore I should do da-da-da, and then we'll do this, and just trying to work the problem, right, as opposed to the problem working you. So with that in mind, I've tried to, somebody asked me once, they said, Kevin, what do you think the 3 essential skills are for the future? And I said, design thinking, number 1. I said, having some understanding of AI and robotics, number 2. And then wilderness survival skills, number 3. Because when the grid goes down, there's no electricity, and it's basically like you're back to Mad Max days. You're gonna need to know how to like start a fire in the woods and keep yourself alive. I'm not kidding. So I'm not a survivalist, but I see that you want to have both ends of the spectrum figured out. So for Claire, she loves to draw. She likes building things. She talks to AI, and she also loves to hike. She loves hiking. So this is great. I showed her how to use a first aid kit. Just little things like that to kind of round out her as a prepared individual for an unpredictable world. So stability is not coming back, but adaptability will carry you forward. This is you. You are here, right? And you think about, here I am, and then I want to go forward to my future. I have a goal, and I want to go towards that goal. We always think about going to the goal. The goal is in front of us, or in this direction, we're going towards it. But there is a whole field of experience and opportunity around you, right? There, speaking again, figuratively, things around you, things behind you even, that could be part of your path to that goal. Maybe getting to where you want to be requires you to take a step back in a certain way, to dial back, to reconsider something, reframe something, and then go forward. So maybe getting to here requires this as opposed to that. Maybe this is not possible. Maybe this even happens accidentally. And maybe the thing you want isn't what you thought, it's something else, and you discover that along the way. Something you really love, something that really engages you and makes you feel alive, is outside of your expectation. So there are no instructions for your future, you have to write them yourself. I know people want to know. I had students who would say, tell me what to do. Like, okay, Kevin, so maybe somebody thought, okay, so he'll come in, he'll talk about what he did, and then he'll talk about how we should adapt that to what we should do for ourselves. Nope, I don't know. I have no instructions for you about what you should do. The only instruction is that you shouldn't do what has been done, and you're going to have to figure it out for yourself, and you want to figure it out for yourself. You told me to speak slower, didn't you? Just go.
I think I mentioned something like that.
That's my slower speed. Anyway, in terms of like writing your own future, this is why we do what we do with our company. So our team, the people we work with, creating stories, working together, developing content, developing strategies for how to make shows. We're not waiting for somebody to come in and say, hey, we'd like to hire you guys to do a show for us or to work over here. We're basically creating our own opportunities, and it's great. It's not easy, but it's fun. And to really be engaged with, like, developing a show, talking about how, directing a film, helping a team to improve their processes for how they animate something. And then seeing the result, like you're showing something to your children and they're laughing, right? It's rewarding. And I also have to tell you, children are the most cruel, most vicious, most honest audience or viewers you could possibly have. It's great because if they laugh and love something, you know they really do. Because if they don't like it, they'll say, that sucks. Why did you do that? How come that's not funny? So it's a great way to sort of like stay, the same way that when I talk to students like yourselves, it's good to be in an environment of other people who are younger and looking at things a different way, and we'll get to Q&A and talk more about this. Engaging with the younger generation like my children and finding out what's important to them is crucial because we're making these shows for them, right, in many cases. The children's shows are for them, so it should be something that we test with them, that engages them. And the same thing goes for the shows that we're doing for adults. So we're creating our opportunities. We're doing what we think we want to do. We're doing what we know we want to do, the way we think it should be done, and then checking in with our potential audiences and consumers to see, is this something you would want or not? Okay. A couple more of these. in a world of relentless noise, your uniqueness is your advantage. So the only thing that cannot be replaced in this world is you. There's a saying, they say the graveyards of the world are filled with irreplaceable people, but the fact of the matter is that there's nobody like you. So AI, whatever, it doesn't matter. You have a uniqueness, you have a value, you have a way that you can talk to people, children, adults, to engage with the world that is special to yourself. Your combination of experiences and skills and talents is like a sandwich that nobody else has the exact same stack, the exact same flavor. So you really want to capitalize on that as much as possible. Having said all that, and to kind of bring this to some kind of a conclusion, scuba divers have a saying that the shark you see is not the one you have to worry about. It's not the shark you see you have to worry about. It's the shark you don't see that you have to worry about. So, Marco and I met at NTU, at the hospital, NTU hospital. And I was, this is when I was diagnosed with cancer. So I was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. And if you know anything about cancer, I hope you don't know too much about cancer, but there's no stage 5. Stage 4 is like, stage 5 is you're in the ground. And, and I was like, and actually, I think, you guys might have been on the opposite side of that curtain possibly, but I remember meeting Marco and Kang there because they were staying for something fortunately much less serious. We got to know each other, and I think we met before I got the diagnosis. Yes. You guys were in and out, and then later, because you were like, hey, you want to speak at my school? And I'm like, yeah, if I'm still alive, because I got cancer. But hey, look, it's happening, right? So who'd have thunk it? This really was like, I was like, okay, that's it, like I'm done. Like I went on a ChatGPT, which I do a lot for advice, and I said, hey, so I got stage 4 cancer. Can you give me a list of things I need to do before I'm dead, right? Like for my family, finances, like whatever. And ChatGPT was like, which it does a lot. ChatGPT gives that little sugar hit where it's like, oh, that's a very insightful question. Like the dopamine hit. Kevin, I'm so sorry, it's so brave of you to say this and really, okay, here's what you should do, da 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 da. And I was like, whoa. And as a father, I had a list of things that I should do and have done once I had children, like make sure that my wife's name is as a beneficiary and my financial accounts and da da da. But the list that it gave me, like 80% of the things I'd already done, but there were 20% I didn't think of at all, like a digital asset manager for like my social media, not that I want to keep posting, but just like all that stuff that's you could go away or be locked up. So making sure that people don't have to go to court to get access to your stuff, etc. Little things like that. And I was just like, wow, this is fantastic. And then when I went to see the oncologist for the first time, the cancer doctor, and my wife said, hey, why don't you, I'm skipping over a lot of stuff. My wife was like, hey, why don't you ask, like everything's, but after the crying and the hugging, she said, why don't you make a list of questions to ask the cancer doctor? And I had been keeping every day a journal of like what happened at the hospital. I was in the hospital for a month. I had surgeries, I had MRIs, everything. They took out some tumors or other tumors they couldn't take out because they'd screw me up, like I wouldn't be able to walk, or I'd be shitting into a bag or something for the rest of my life, so I left them there. And I'm going to the oncologist, so I have this list of questions, and I know the things I want to ask, but I went to ChatGPT and I threw my journal. I had a journal every day I was writing down what happened in the hospital. I dumped it into ChatGPT and I said, give me 6 questions to ask the cancer doctor. And it was like, boom, would you like these in a video form? Or like, it's like, okay, and some bullet points. And the list was good, so I brought it in. And the one question it had that I didn't ask is how long do I have? Because I didn't care. I mean, I care, but I was like, I'm not gonna how long do I have? And the doctor laughed when he saw it. He said, did ChatGPT make this for you? He didn't laugh, but when I laughed and he laughed, he kind of waited to see my attitude. I'm kind of a weird patient for Taiwan doctors. Like everybody here is so like serious, and I'm like not. And they're kind of like, what's wrong with you? Or like I'll ask something really direct, and they're just like, whoa, like that. I say, well, I'm a foreigner, we can't do that. But the point is that I learned that you can't control your timeline. You don't know how much time you have, but you can control your direction and your attitude towards things. So part of why I'm standing here like la-di-di-da right now is because I got better. Not cured, but better. I started taking chemotherapy for my cancer. It wasn't working. For the tumors that were still in there, they're continuing to grow. And they switched me over to immunotherapy. So if you know what chemotherapy, this is the non-scientific explanation, chemotherapy attacks the cancer. And a lot of times the cancer will fight back against it. The cancer doesn't want to die, ironically. Immunotherapy boosts your immune system to fight the cancer. And it does that for certain cancers better than others. My cancer, melanoma, turned out to be one of the ones that immunotherapy works for really well. So they put me on that. It's super frickin' expensive. Again, I gotta thank God for two things. I don't really believe in God, but thank for two things. One is that I was in Taiwan where I can get the best care in the world, and two, I was in Taiwan where I could afford this care. So I pay into the insurance system. I have a company, so I have Taiwan National Health Insurance. Is great because I take every 3 weeks. They give me $7,000 US worth of immunotherapy of juice. I have an injection port in my chest and it goes in here into my heart every 3 weeks. So $7,000 US a week. Sorry, every 3 weeks. Under the Taiwan insurance system, do you know how much I pay? $3, not $3,000. $3 US, right? Because it's covered. Part of it, I think, is because I'm listed because it was like stage 4 melanoma. I got this special certificate of like dread disease where like, he's gonna be dead soon, so we probably won't have to pay this for too long. I'm guessing that's what it is. But the immunotherapy is working. So yay, I went from stage 4 to stage 3. And what that means basically, stage 4 is where it's in other places. And those went away. So now it's just regional again, which is stage 3. So, and I'm walking around, right? I still have problems that I won't describe to you that you may not even notice. People think, oh, you look perfectly fine. I'm not. But I can do this, and I'm still here, right? So, who knows what, my wife, my wife was talking about, like I worry about, she's like, Kevin, you're the weirdest person ever because you worry about everything, but then when something actually happens to you, you're just like, okay, deal with it. And I said, yeah, my mom kind of like raised me that way. I was just talking about, well, okay, so the immunotherapy, like they're gonna cover for 3 years, and after 3 years, what are we gonna do then? And while I'm talking about this, I almost got hit by a car. We're crossing the street, I almost got hit by a car and killed. And my wife pulled me back, and then she's like, you idiot, you see, you're talking about 3 years down the road with this procedure, you almost got hit by a car. So again, keeping your mind in the moment and not thinking too far down the road. When I talk about controlling my direction, I really wanted to reorient myself back to my family. So this was the day I was released from the hospital. And just really spending more time with my wife, with my children, with my kids, which I thought I had been doing, but I realized I was letting work kind of creep into that and take over more than it should. But also then redirecting myself professionally. So I continued to focus on animation, but also each day I was doing less. I was maybe working half as much. So I had to make these hours count. So what I decided to focus on were things that I thought were good for the Taiwan ecosystem. So one project in particular we're doing, this is us pitching it at Annecy in the Taiwan Spotlight. It's this was this summer. So this was like, I think a month after I got out of the hospital. I was still using a cane, but I was like, damn it, I'm going to France to pitch this thing. And my doctors were like, we really wouldn't recommend it, but if you insist, all right, go ahead and we'll give you, a beeper to like contact us if you get in trouble. We have been working on one of our projects, and I'll show you a trailer for this, is called Bliss. It's a sci-fi anthology. 6 companies, we are one of them. And this is something that is trying to do international quality animation for global audiences. This is funded by the Ministry of Culture in large part. And it's something that we hope will engage audiences just who love animation, love sci-fi, but also show the level at which Taiwan can operate and function. And I'm one of the directors of the 6 shorts. And this was just a few weeks ago here in Taiwan talking about it. I think that's the exact same shirt as I'm wearing now. And I want to go ahead and show you, I'll show you that teaser because it's not in this PPT. But I want to say this, even when life throws you something that seems like it's the end, like, hey, you got cancer, and it's not just like any cancer, it's like stage 4 melanoma, like the prognosis is not good. I talk to people, go, oh my God, like shouldn't you just be doing nothing? Like, I just want to sit around and wait to die. It really clarifies your mind in terms of what you want to do, how you should spend your life. So what I want to leave you with is this thought, don't wait for the world to open a door, create the one you want, and be prepared to keep recreating that door, right? And maybe say, okay, this door isn't what I thought, and opening another one for yourself. There's a saying among people who believe in God who say that God does not close one door without opening another. And I don't know about God, but I will tell you this. You can open doors for yourself. You can also choose which ones you want to walk through. And you can spend your time in one door and then decide to go over to another. It's your life, it's your choice. So don't look for the answers. Don't look for the answers. Go out and find them from other people. Go out and find those for yourself. And as, again, trying to wrench this back to management, as managers, try to understand that your approach to management is going to have to involve taking into consideration things that are maybe unmanageable, but are certainly still something that you can engage with and hopefully, learn from. Okay. So with that, I want to leave you with this. So those of you who didn't scan my QR code at the very beginning, go ahead and scan that. And then I'm going to show you this 1-minute teaser for lists. And then I think we have time like 4:15. We can open up for some.
questions. We will go on.
Okay. Let me. If you didn't get that, talk to somebody next to you who did earlier. And let me go ahead and show you this. That's From Taiwan for the World, coming out in 2026, January or February. We're all in post right now. I shouldn't actually be here. I should be in the post studio. But it's quite exciting, and the initial feedback has been good. Many people who are going like, wow, that's from Taiwan? Like, yeah. So that's always interesting when you can defy people's or challenge people's expectations. I always enjoy that. So that's it. Let's use our remaining time and just, I'm going to leave that teaser here. By the way, it's not confidential. We have it out, so like if you go to my website, you'll see some link to that somewhere. If somebody happened to take that and copy it and send it everywhere, I wouldn't care. Please do. Let's go ahead and open it up for, I think we can turn up the light here and then just do
and
some.
Time 10.
My pleasure. And thank you to Marco for, I really, again, like especially this year has been so crazy for a variety of reasons. I told Marco, if a school just randomly asked me, hey Kevin, you want to come and speak? I'd be like, no. But Marco is, even though we just known each other a short while, a really great friend. And also when he heard about what was happening, he's like, oh, we don't have to do the talk. Why don't you do the talk? I'd be happy to. So thank you again for having me in here. Let's go ahead and do, I think we could shut off is it able to shut this off so it's not like I could be here and it's not shining in my eyes? Or we don't know how to shut it.
Yeah.
Is that more complicated than...
No, it's not complicated. It takes some time.
Since my talk wasn't exactly about management, if there's anything you guys want to ask about anything, either relevant to your own, hopefully relevant to your own concerns, please do, and I'll try to speak to it as meaningfully as I can. Anybody? Yes. I knew he'd be the first. I told you. Okay. Good sign. Right. No, that's not a bad thing at all. Marco was like, I don't know if anybody will. They're very shy. I said, well, there's one guy I know who will ask a question. It's that guy who he asked one already. But go ahead.
Did you get inspiration from everyone? To make lists?
Yes, and I want to say this about, so a lot of, we did, I'm a Cyberpunk fan. One thing that about cyberpunk that gets discussed is that cyberpunk in Japan originally came about as a reaction to a lot of the pressures of society. And Japan, at the same time that they have this incredible acceleration technologically, there's financial pressures, one of the highest suicide rates in the world, right? A lot of social issues. And cyberpunk was a reaction to that. What happened then is that many other countries, etc., when they would emulate cyberpunk, were emulating the form, but not the substance, right? Like they were copying the visual form of it, but not what was motivating that. So what we try to do in our Bliss anthology is, and if you go to my website, you'll find a link eventually which talks about this stuff, that is reacting to the realities that we're facing as a society, especially here in Taiwan, where things are so uncertain on so many levels, and then we have the issues of AI and the relationships that we're kind of having with AI and all this transformation. We're trying to express substance, even though this teaser is a bunch of sizzle, there is steak in there. It's not all sizzle. There's a sizzle when we have the steak. And cyberpunk was definitely an influence. This one actually is a hybrid of, it's like Love, Death, and Robots meets the I Ching. So we try to use Love, Death, and Robots as a framework, but then taking the philosophy of the I Ching as a framework. So each of the shorts deals with one of the gua, right, of the I Ching. And one of the short films, the one that we're working on, there's a woman you might have seen with a tattoo on her shoulder that's representative of the theme of that short. So that's embedded in all of the content there. Sorry, that's a rambling answer, but short answer, yes. Cyberpunk. Other questions? You look like you have a question. Well, if you were to ask a question, what would it be? Let me ask you a question. So you're management, right? Management student. Why did you choose this area, this field? It's not a challenge. I'm just curious. Yeah.
I didn't really know what I was doing.
Did somebody suggest it to you? Did you throw a dart at the book?
Yeah, I just opened up a map and I just blindly threw a dart.
And then here you are, right? So that was, and you're in, what year are you in? Is this your final year?
Yeah, I'm actually not in the class.
Oh, you're not. So you're here, but you're not here.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're just like, oh, well, that's cool. So you just came just to see me? Oh, that's so cute. Or are you just always sitting there? Like, whenever people come in, you're in that chair. So, what was that? No, sorry. I'm like ostracizing people. What is the most interesting thing that you have learned that you didn't expect you would learn?
Ooh. I mean, now that you ask it, I forgot everything.
That's good, because you probably won't need most of it. But what is is there anything that surprised you that you learned in your time here that you didn't expect?
I think one of them is like juggling means the role of your life. Like being like just basically living. And I mean, because I have been a boarding school student.
A boarding school student?
Yeah, I thought like it would be just like a boarding school coming here because I'm from Thailand, I'm not from Taiwan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now I hear it. Yeah, now that you say that, I hear it.
Thank you. And then it's just like I thought it would be very simple, but it's not at all. It's not really. I think in my.
Were you in boarding school here or in Thailand?
In India.
In India?
Yeah.
Wow, so you really get around. So you're from Thailand and you're in boarding school in India,
Yes.
and now you're here. That's cool. Is that on your own, or is that because you have parents who have jobs that move around? Why? I'm just curious.
It's just that my dad just throws me into India.
He just sent you here and there. Where are you going? Where are you going next? Which country's next on the list?
I'm still figuring it out.
So that's cool. So I told Marco, I said if people pause and asking questions, I'm going to ask them back. That's great. So, do you like going around, or do you want to? Some people who travel a lot, they're like, okay, I've had enough of that. I just want to
That's very great questions. I really like moving around. I think when I was living in there, it was very nice waking up every day and like not knowing what's going to happen. Some days my underwear just got stolen.
Your underwear got stolen?
Like in a
Oh my god, that happened to me once, but I won't go into details.
So like, I think from my time so that it really makes me likes to just not knowing what is going to happen the next day.
Cool. How many languages do you speak?
Right now, only 3.
Only 3.
Yeah. I still have
That's awesome. Yeah, I asked my kids, so my kids are bilingual in Chinese and English. And when we were living in Beijing, we were living near the embassy district, and all their friends and their playgroups spoke like 5 languages. Like 2 was nothing. My parents said, oh my God, it's so great, they're bilingual. I said, Mom, it's like kids are speaking like 4 or 5 languages, especially the ones from Europe or from different parts of Asia.
That's my dream too, to speak Spanish.
That's cool. Well,
I'm
you
not
know.
sure if Chinese is going to be open. It's so difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult, but I think it's probably worth. Well, you speak some Chinese, right?
Not really.
Okay. Like I said, well, I have no improvement. Once my daughter started speaking Chinese well enough that if I was talking to the banker or the plumber, I could say. I try to. My children actually say, "Daddy, don't speak Chinese because you sound like an idiot." So I was like, "Okay, I just won't do it." But then I have to bring them up. So there are times when I actually try to speak in Chinese, and the person's not understanding me, and I'm just like, "Claire," and then she just gets in there and like handles it, like talking to the plumber about whatever. And all right, Daddy, it's done. Here's what you need to do. I'm like, all right, thank you, Claire.
Just the bill.
Yes, exactly. All right, thank you, Michelle. What's your name?
English name?
Either one. You want to give me the really long Thai name or the? What's the really long Thai name? Okay, I'm not going to try that at all. But and what's your English name?
Brian.
Cool. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Any questions? You look like you have a question. No? No? Okay. Oh, wait, here. Hold on, Florian. She's like, no, don't ask me that. Yes.
How can you stay so optimistic facing your cancer, especially in stage 4?
Great question. I guess denial of reality. It's sort of like I know it's real. Like it's not like I went through surgery, etc. And like it was not. There was a time when I just got out of the hospital. I was on a cane and I didn't look good, right? And so like now that time has passed and like the treatment's going well, I'm functional. But I think part of it is just, some of it is just how you're born, how I was raised. Like my family, my mom was very optimistic. My mom was interesting. My mom was like, hope for the best but prepare for the worst. She's very optimistic, but she's so negative in how she described like what could happen to you. Oh well, you know this. You could be ripped in half completely, and like it was almost like comical. Like she would think of the worst possible thing. So I do this. My wife sometimes doesn't like I think of the worst thing that could possibly happen. But I hope for the best, and I try to just be. I don't try to be optimistic. I guess I just kind of am. It kind of spooks my doctors a bit. They're like, you know what you have, right? I said, yeah, I know. I know, but it's like they just sort of like, okay. I've had a good life. I've been very lucky, like with my family. Even though I was, divorced and got remarried, etc. So I've had my ups and downs. But having my family, my wife, my kids, and the opportunities I've had, I really appreciate. And just to be able to continue to function. Like when I got out of the hospital after like a month there, just breathing fresh air that first day, I was like so. Just like, oh, it's just so good to like breathe air and feel the wind on my face. And then here's how life happens. As I start to feel better, etc., then I start bitching about, oh, this person left the newspaper in the wrong place and the rain made it wet, and you start getting caught up in all that little bullshit again, and like have to keep reminding myself of like the big picture of that. When I came out of the hospital, I just want to live, be with my family, do these things. As far as how or why, I don't know. I don't have an answer as to why. But what I do know is this. Studies have shown that people who have any kind of serious disease, heart disease, cancer, whatever, this is not magical thinking. It's not like just keep a smile on your face and everything will be fine. No. You need medicine, you need treatment. But people who are optimistic tend to do better than people who don't. Maybe better just might mean 1 or 2 more years, right? But, and it's not just magical thinking, but it's because if you are more optimistic, I think I'll go outside and have a walk. And then in the process of having a walk, you're actually doing something physical, which is strengthening your body, blah, blah, blah. So it's not just magic, it's something that has a practical aspect to it. And really, what's the alternative? Like if I was just being like, pessimistic or negative or spiraling, oh God, there's no point to it. I've had some days like that. Not so much about myself. I really don't care if I live or die. But I mean, I've had, you know, I don't want to live as long. My parents, like in their 80s, like, God, I don't want to live that long. It's just like, I'd rather leave earlier. But I do feel sad sometimes about, oh, if I were to die and my kids were still here and they need me and they don't have me. So those are times when maybe I get a little bit, not down, but like more thoughtful about it. So like, hey, I got cancer, look at me, I'm fine. But I try to keep myself viable as long as I can. And anything can happen. You know, like I told you, I almost got hit by a car. And that has nothing to do with the cancer. It's just like, and just because you have something doesn't mean you don't get something else. Like, hey, I've got my disease, so no diabetes, no heart disease, I'm immune from everything else, no war, I got my thing now. It's, you know, anything can happen. We're lucky, bringing this back to AI, there's a lot of people panicking about artificial intelligence taking their jobs and data scraping, stealing people's work, etc. One reason that many medical technologies are advancing, especially cancer, is because of AI, because AI with pattern matching and analysis of genetic sequencing and so forth is able to devise new treatments and new modalities faster than ever. So one reason that the treatments have gone up like this in terms of effectiveness is because of artificial intelligence. And that's why my own doctor said, Kevin, don't look at like previously melanoma stage 4, you're dead. Like you're dead in months, right? The fact that number one, mine can go from stage 4 back to 3, like those remote things coming down. He said, don't worry about the prognosis. Those prognoses are based on things 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And this is changing now, right? So bringing this back to you guys, you know, forget about my cancer. Stuff is changing all the time. Don't think about, you'll have your parents, other people, books you read in class talking about, well, this is statistically what will happen. Yeah, statistically 5 years ago. Statistically last year. But last year is like 100 years ago, the way things are changing now. So like don't limit yourself to that. Don't limit your thinking to what was, even if it was just last year. That's gone, right? Make your own future. Sorry, I'm soapboxing now. Yes? Are you gonna bring it to?
No, I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the impact that you think AI will have on your work and is having on your work? Is AI going to lead you to reduce your workforce, to increase your workforce, change the way you're working? What is the impact that you expect?
It's a great question, and it's something that if you look at the news, especially in the entertainment industry in Hollywood, there's a lot of discussion and commotion about it, and also you start to see the consequences. Many people are losing their jobs, and then the jobs are not coming back, and more producers, more companies trying to use AI, and people, if they need a poster now, are not going and hiring a designer. They're just like using, you know, Midjourney or ChatGPT and making it themselves, and it's actually, hey, that looks good enough, and boom, there you go. And you could probably tell because of some of the errors. You see AI-generated posters, book covers, etc., all over the place. So there's a large amount of work, creative work, design work, animation work that is going away because of AI. If you go to my blog, you'll see I've got a bunch of articles on AI. And one article talks about the fact that if your job is, if you are a hired gun, if you are like a mercenary, if somebody's paying, excuse me, if somebody's paying you to fulfill their vision, you might get replaced by AI. But if you're trying to follow your own vision, AI is a godsend. So what I mean by that is that if your job is you work as a poster designer, maybe not as many people are going to contact you because they're designing their own posters with AI. For me as a producer, so our company is very small, and we use AI as part of our process for everything from story development to planning and strategy, even some early visual development. And I've had friends who say, oh, you're stealing jobs. I say, we're actually creating jobs. And I'm not saying that in like a reverse reality way, reality distortion way. But as an independent producer who used to work for a big company, but works by myself now with my wife and a very small team, we can develop projects. The reason we can do 4 projects at once at all, and then I get sick and we can still keep going, is because we have our robot pals helping us out. And because of that, we can put more things into production, and we have, that have employed human beings here in Taiwan, right? So real people sitting at real desks and real chairs working on things that have some AI involved, but allows us to get something out that creates jobs, that gives people employment. So I don't see it as an either-or proposition, like a black or white. For independent producers, like myself, it's a godsend. I mean, it came at like just the right time. For people whose job is to do something for somebody else, I'm like, yeah, you might have to adjust. So for example, friends of mine who complain about this, I say, so tell me how big your housekeeping staff is. They're like, what? I say, yeah, so like I'm sure you have a housemaid, right? And you have a gardener, and they probably live on the property, right? Like in the olden time. No, we don't have, you know, so I wash my own dishes, and I make my own food, and I cut my own grass. Well, why are you doing that? You're taking jobs away from gardeners and dishwashers and housekeepers. How dare you do your own stuff with your own hands? And then they're like, that's not the same thing. I said, well, it kind of is in some way. It's like, you know, there's this proposition of like, the things that you do, or people who shoe horses, who put shoes on horses. Some people still do it, but it's not a growth industry, right? It's not something that you go into the school for. I want to learn how to be a blacksmith and shoe horses. There are some people who do it and make a living at it, but it's a niche market, right? Because of the automobile, etc. So I think that the value that people will get from AI is going to be a counterweight to the, like, there are going to be some negatives, of course. I'm not making light of this. It's going to be a painful transition for some people. But I think if people embrace it, it's not going away. Like, and engage with it, it'll get better. The one thing I say to anybody who is skeptical of AI, whatever your field, like maybe we could even close on this. For artificial intelligence, if you're in a creative field, management, whatever, and you hate it or don't think it's good, be involved with it, because we need people like yourselves in it. If the only people who are involved are the evangelists who are like, that's great, it's going to be perfect, and everything's fine, that's a recipe for disaster. If people are involved, we're saying, now wait a minute, ethically speaking, da-da-da, or we have to be careful that we don't inadvertently do blah, that's a healthy ecosystem for development of something, anything, right, any technologies, in a way that will be to the betterment of how it's applied. So just like I mentioned a knife earlier, like you can use a knife to have a surgery to save a person's life, or you can kill somebody with a knife. AI, you can use it to develop modalities of cancer treatment that can have a person live longer, or you can steal somebody's job, right? It's not the tool, it's the application, and it's the intention behind that. So, sorry, that's, there's a whole lot we can, maybe we'll come back and talk about that, but it's something that we're all living. I mean, it's not just abstract, it's happening now. I never thought, I'll say this, I lived through the digital revolution. You guys all, I guess you did too. The 90s and so forth, when we had desktop publishing coming into play, digital transformed Hollywood in terms of how films are made. And I thought, okay, that's cool. I lived through one really major technological transition, that's amazing. I never thought there'd be another one in my lifetime. And then suddenly AI was always like some abstraction out there in science fiction future. And I was like, holy shit, here it is happening like right now. All the stuff we talked about, maybe, etc. in the future is happening now. So I guess for better and for worse, there's a curse. I think it's a Chinese curse that like, may you live in interesting times. And we certainly did. So I guess, should we leave it there?
Yeah, I think it's...
I'm skidding around now. One more, or are we done? Anybody? See, Ashwari is hoping I don't come back to it. I actually don't, I don't need you. I mean, I'm not saying I don't need you in a bad way, but like, we're good, right? We had some questions, so everything's fine. Let's see, anybody else? Okay, thank you all. Please, if you want to stay in touch, or if you have a question that you don't want to ask like out loud, feel free to email me. If I don't respond right away, I will. I got some stuff going on, so I'm not like a digital native where I was like, boom, I answer right away. It might be like a day or two, but I will respond to anybody who texts me or who, if you guys still email, who emails me.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.